It is Sunday, April 20th, 2025. I'm still working on the video. And why are they reflected so? Up, down, left, right? Does it matter? Can they form in any direction? Is it the same as that singularity? Just simulacra? I must know more, or I fear that I will go mad trying to determine it for myself. I can only hope I finish this project before the night rain begins. God help me. Oh, I think I've made a terrible mistake. God help us all. Oh, I have sinned so greatly. Sister Marika, could you fetch my tooth flail?
Long ago, before the land was overshadowed by invasion, this scourge was shunned, and the cursed blades were imprisoned. It was during this confinement that Mira met Labireth, and upon her death, Labireth was plunged into a devastating darkness.
So, let's talk about Life Hunt, or the God-killing Black Plague. Hey, wait a minute. This isn't Elden Ring. I'm sorry about this, Sister Freed.
Hello there.
Let's just get out of your hair then. I'm sorry about that. Won't happen again, I promise. So, let's get down to fucking business and analyze some motherfucking lore, shall we? Ghost Flame, Black Flame, Mimic Tears, Ashes, Rancor, Silver. What are they? Why are they like that? More importantly, what the hell is an Albinaric, anyway? That word breaks down into white and gold. But I thought we were talking about silver, not white gold. What's going on there? How do these relate to things like the silver tears, mimics, moonlight, the choice of color between blue or golden, if any? Also, what does any of this have to do with something like Destined Death or Fingerslayer Blade?
Ancient power of the Godskin nobles. Thrust out belly with gusto to produce a shockwave that knocks back nearby foes. Charging enhances potency, knocking enemies into the air. Once a sign of the gods' wrath, this incantation became a trophy of the nobles' god hunt.
Hi, I'm Jenny Azoth, and I talk about the chemical physics of Elden Ring, because God has cursed me for my hubris and my work is hounded by the ever-growing specter of future game installments. In this series, I try and isolate one or two specific, potentially ancient alchemical influences, or other quantum chemical influences that are more contemporary, that can tell us more about the world of Elden Ring as well as the mindsets of its creators, Hidetaka Miyazaki and George R.R. Martin, and possibly even try to highlight some ways that those connections are readily visible in certain aspects of everyday life. Admittedly, this has mostly been about ancient stained glass windows so far. If you've not seen either of my previous videos yet, I highly recommend you check those out first, as I'm going to be calling on some loose ends I left dangling throughout both of those scripts, as well as drawing on info that's broached there to examine it in a new light. Pun not intended. That'll make sense in a bit. Maybe it won't. You tell me. Shit, we're back. Hi! Since you're back, let's start off with the science that the rest of the video is going to be based on, shall we? You knew this was coming, right? I was going to do it a bit earlier this time so we have more time to discuss it. And also this one's likely going to be a shorter video anyways, don't check the time code. I have here a video of someone preparing the Nano Silver Rainbow, a series of preparations of nano silver capable of resonating with each band of light individually that would constitute a prismatic continuum, some of which are actually nano triangles and shit like that. Nanostructuring is honestly wild. Feel free to look more into it if you're interested. Link is in the video's lore entry down below. Hey, what? Has this been Dark Souls 3 footage the whole time again? Oh, come on, what is happening here? Hold on a second. Okay. So, what exactly am I going to be talking about this time? How ancient alchemists used this technology in their windows? Well, no, they did, but it just kind of turned into, I don't know, sort of brownish yellow kind of window. It's flickering.
Flickering.
It seems like it does a better job of absorbing blue than it does emitting it, without some nanoscale assistance at least. Well, if it isn't about the light it emits, what am I even here to talk about? How can I stand here in front of you so confidently with this absolute thumbnail, say silver is blue, and get away with it? Who is going to hold me accountable for my narrative crimes? Probably Ranny. See, the thing is, I've been doing a bit of a deep dive back into Dark Souls 3 ever since Night Rain was announced. I know, it's probably nothing. I'm sure it won't come up. Consider this the last you'll hear from me on the matter. I'm not even sure why I brought it up. Such a scatterbrain. Anyways, now that we've firmly established that Dark Souls 3 has absolutely nothing to do with this video about silver nor the color blue, let's take a quick moment to discuss the purification of gold. Specifically, I'm going to be focusing on something called gold parting. You'll see why in just a minute. Here, let's take a look at the footage. So, here's the thing. I brought up electrum in that last video about gold, which is an alloy of gold and silver. I said at the time that most could not tell the difference, and in doing so, I largely glossed over it. Until now. Gold parting is one of the processes used to refine electrum into gold, of the highest purity affordable. You see, gold and silver amalgamate together very easily, also mercury. That's a whole other subject. And, well, it's kind of hard to undo an alloy. Have you ever made soup? You know, you get all of the ingredients together, you chop them up, you put them into the broth, you cook them until they're all nice and, mixed together. Have you ever unmade soup? Gold parting is kind of like trying to unmake soup. Ancient methods of this use some techniques I'm going to discuss in a moment, and don't worry, this shit is going to get weird. But to start off, the current state of the art involves one of two processes, the miller or the wool will, which we do not have to care about, aside from the fact that the miller produces a maximum purity of 99.5, the wool will produces a purity of 99.999%, respectively. The difference between passive and electrochem, folks. Powerful stuff. To grossly abbreviate, by which I mean read from Wikipedia directly, and no, I'm not doing proper research for this part. These videos are not for you, they are a cry for medical attention. I'm sorry, where was I? Oh, right, Wikipedia. The Miller process uses a stream of chlorine gas which is bubbled up through molten gold. This causes chloride salts to precipitate out, which then form a bit of a slag that floats to the top in an unctuous layer, kind of like that, kind of like how the mimic tear surface or the putrescence looks. Meanwhile, the wool process is electrolytic, with elemental gold or titanium as the cathode, and chloroauric acid as the electrolyte. The cathode is electroplated with gold, while the anode, if made of gold, is etched in the process while the electrolyte depletes out of solution. Any constituent silver then forms an insoluble slime, while copper and platinum remain soluble and are extracted later through other means. Like that copper, let's save that for a later video and focus on the silver here. Did you catch that? The part where silver precipitates out as a slime, meaning it falls or drips down during the extraction? What's more, these droplets, which while falling are obviously going to look quite a bit like, well, a moon, happen to also be opaque white, or a darker color, possibly. Like two different colors of moon, of different hues. Fancy that. Ooh, a chest, neat. Let me just, fuck! Okay. Okay, this is what we're doing now. God damn it. Okay, cool. So, gold parting, silver slime, moons dripping out of trees, silver gold, Albinaric extraction, gold parting. Yeah, I got it. If life is electrum, then it's partially gold and partially silver, and the silver may furthermore be extracted and deposited, and still be alive without being gold, leading to many of the things we see with the Albinarics, specifically with the fact that they tend to transform into amphibians and bottom feeders in the case of the homunculus Albinaric crabs, as well as the general erosion of their legs being a sort of double statement about turning into tadpoles, as well as losing their roots as trees. You know, sort of like the serpent from the Garden of Eden and all that. Signifying that this process of trying to create artificial life was itself a sin, and they're just kind of being punished for their creator's sins. Anyways, omens, of course, as a contrast, obviously have an excess of roots instead in the manifestation of the horns that come out of their heads, for which they are reviled. I wonder if that's why an omen killer was there in the Albinaric village at Gideon's behest. Come to think of it, the omen killer's masks are said to resemble the dreams and spirits that haunt the omens. But don't they also resemble the horn scent and the curse blades and the dancing lions? You know, the divine tutelaries. I wonder if those are the same spirits. Are they both rancor? It's possible. Wait, back up. What the fuck did Muriel mean when saying the marriage of moon and tree, then? They can't be married. You're parting the gold. What is going on? Why did Radagon come here before uniting with Marika as the alchemical rebus? Why wouldn't Marika just do this herself? And if gold tarnishes purplish red, what is it that tarnishes black exactly?
Hey, the answer. I'll give you a hint. The answer is silver.
Hey, let's talk about black lights and the word gloam. Shit, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spook you like that. I get really excited at night. Nitrogen really seems to smell different at night. Have you ever noticed that? Maybe you've been dealing with this lately. I know, bit of a detour for an Elden Ring lore video. I hear it's been happening quite a lot lately. I wonder if this was all scientifically predictable or something. Oh well, that's enough acknowledging the climate crisis for one video. Let's get back on topic, huh? Nitrogen. NOx compounds, specifically nitrous oxides, or gaseous compounds with one nitrogen but a variable number of oxygens per. They hang around in the air, they come from combustion, and they cause a haze in the air when it's light out, specifically because they're highly reactive, forming chain reactions in the presence of UV light. They make it difficult to tell how many oxygens any one nitrogen has at any given time, given their name. And yes, that reaction continues while you breathe it in. That is the hazard. Genuinely, if you take nothing else away from this, please wear a mask, or just go outside during night. Avoid going outside if you see the haze during the day. It's genuinely less hazardous at night for the same reason that black lights are a thing at all. UV radiation. You know, that shit that, much like infrared radiation, gets rarefied out via scattering as one might observe in the atmosphere or indeed from moonlight. See? I segued it. I bet you thought that was bullshit. No? Maybe I've pulled this bit way too many times. I guess I need to mix up my hypothetical audience's expectations. People like that worm video way more than I thought they would. Okay, so if you didn't already know how the electromagnetic spectrum works in general, I guess this video has been pretty weird so far, but let's back up quickly. One last time. When you exceed the energy of visible light, you blue shift towards ultraviolet, and you eventually reach X-rays and gamma, which penetrate most forms of solid matter and break various chemical bonds, causing health problems for anyone who deals with them. Aside the Hulk, I suppose. Point is, UV is high energy, breaks bonds, and it's so high energy that we can't actually see it. It slips out of the visible range, but it can still be quite bright nevertheless. Just go to a rave wearing a pure white jumpsuit and see what happens. It'll be funny. So, why am I bringing this up? Well, imagine life isn't just gold. We've talked about that already. It's the light reflected off of it, which would be why any lustrous compound would be able to carry and reflect life, carrying information in its waveform, such as a remembrance or a spirit, the light traveling through the air between source and receiver, and thus being perceived as alive, like a flickering flame. Imagine that gold possesses this property due to its luster, and not due to anything inherent about it, and so by the same virtue, so too does silver, copper, platinum, any other precious metal, although these may be parted away at will. How would you go about killing something like light? How do you kill a god, dragon, or otherwise? How would you kill a celestial body? How would you kill a moon? You'd eat the light before it hit its target, wouldn't you? Like filtered light, a reflection of the vital source. Reflecting it and, in doing so, removing it of hue, if you will? Like moonlight? I'm repeating myself. Let's just start at the beginning and jump right in. Just the other night, around the time of the lunar eclipse in North America in 2025, a massive fucking moonbeam shone directly onto my bed and into my eyes at the dead of night. Like trying to imitate those infuriating mornings where the sun does the exact same. This script is kind of like that. I really want to get this one right. My first draft was kind of a mess, so this time I've decided to make a script while responding to that first draft. I also want to thank Tarnished Archaeologists for making a video with lore I can actually make use of, so please go check them out if you haven't already. I can't imagine you found me before them. They make way better videos than I do. Why are you even here? Oh. Right, the video. So, I believe there's a connection between the lightless beyond, eternal night, moonlight, black flame, and Marika's origin as an Empyrean, as well as the reason she was at war with the Gloam-Eyed Queen. More on that later. To be specific, the visions of flame that Mesmer and Melina experienced likely match the events surrounding Marika's acquisition of Destined Death, whose black and red flames could kill even the gods. Alchemically, we can associate them with the serpents entwined around the Tree of Knowledge, the Clickbait, which exist as a natural mirror to the Sephiroth of the Tree of Life. Do you see where I'm going with this yet? No? You'll get there. Anyway, so how did those wind up in the hands of the God Killers? When? What events did that precipitate? What preceded? And how on earth am I going to find a way to connect this to nanochemistry? That all starts with the event we know most about. Marika sealing away Destined Death after previously wielding it through Maliketh, her shadow, and other half, or hanshin in Japanese, half of a true self, roughly speaking. Sealing this flame away, then, would result in a blue shift, as the flame itself is a vibrant black-red. In other words, shifting towards the blue end of the spectrum in order to remove the hue of the formerly red god-killing flames, and in doing so, neutralizing its most potent effects. Similarly, nano-sized silver turns skin blue, as is the case with Argeria, don't look it up. But in Windows, it turns a deep golden yellow, a complementary color to blue. Ironic, since nano-sized gold itself doesn't turn yellow, but rather a deep wine red. As discussed in my previous awful video game theory essay. It also brings to question something much more vital, that being the precise nature of such things as the Queen's Black Flame, as well as Ruinous Ghost Flame and how those contrast when discussing Elden Ring in the context of other Souls games, as well as alchemy and even Gnosticism. By doing so, I hope to highlight a parallel between Marika's quest and Ranni's in order to more fully understand the connections between the moons, the eternal cities and their finger-slayer blades, and by extension silver, the primeval current, putrescence, albinarics, numen, and mimic tears. Assuming there's actually a meaningful difference, of course. What's more, I aim to elucidate some details I believe inform us about aspects of the lightless beyond, its connections to the shattering and the greater will, as well as some parallels between the ways both the Erd Tree and Death Birds handle the concept of death. Specifically, Helfin's Steeple and Noble Presence, as well as Meteorites of Estelle, are going to be particularly useful spells in this discussion, as well as an investigation of Estelle, Maliketh, the Elden Beast, and Midra. I'm going to try to be a bit more clear with this video, but I apologize if I have trouble at times. I'm on a maximal dose of ADHD medication. Please bear with me. There is just a staggering amount of information I'm trying to synthesize with these conclusions, and full on-screen citations for each and every item description is just not going to be practical, so I'll keep it to just a couple and summarize the rest. I do wish to clarify in this video some loose ends left in previous ones, such as the role of horns, the dance and song of the ancestral followers, the significance of Rykard's blasphemous blade, and the spiral tower of Enir Ilim. Ah! Ouroboros! Anyways, especially when it comes to the all-important task of contacting the outer gods in order to beckon them down to the lands and take purchase within oneself, like a bird, or indeed an abyssal serpent. More on that later. Anyways, to start, let's think about this in terms of colors of amber, and differentiate between red, blue, and green. All three are blessings of the tree, and each belongs to a different noble metal, gold, silver, and copper, respectively. I will here note that copper, or verdigris, is considered an outer god, and so gold and silver are not. I wonder why. Gold we know, but silver? Anyways, this video is primarily about the color blue, both ancient and modern refinement techniques of gold and silver, as well as easy tells to detect silver nanochemistry, as well as alchemical notions of each. Gold is alchemically referred to as the sun, representing an immortal soul, while silver, symbolized by the moon, represents the mind instead, itself playing a role in soul-making. Remember, gold doesn't technically tarnish even if it's activated by great heat or energy. It might turn red or purple due to plasmonic effects, as we see with the lightning of the ancient dragons or indeed Destined Death's flame itself. However, electrum, an alloy of gold and silver, does tarnish, because, well, silver very much does tarnish on its own, forming silver oxide, a gray to black film. So silver can be said to both represent blue, as well as a gradient from gray to black. Interesting. We talked about Aqua Regia before, the black sun devouring the golden one of alchemy, leaving behind a red color. Well, that's made of a 1:3 ratio of nitric acid and hydrochloric acid, which reacts with itself and off-gases until it becomes a color ranging from yellow-orange to orange-red, at which point it's ready to dissolve precious metals. In this case, let's talk about the stuff that silver slime is made of, a mixture of silver nitrate and silver chloride, only one of which is soluble in water, silver nitrate. The chloride is what deposits as a slime, but it can carry soluble nitrate with it as both are created at once. Not really the point being, when you dissolve electrum in Aqua Regia, you'll find this slime coming off as well. Are you familiar with movies being referred to as the silver screen? It's not just because of the monochrome, you know. That shit was printed using silver nitrate film, which reacts in the presence of light and oxidizes into a dark hue fit for black and white films. Thing is, it oxidizes. Any chemist or film buff in the audience is probably already writing this comment, but that is not very stable. Over time, it'll happen on its own, since it is its own oxidizer. Even the tiniest spark can set an increasingly likely fire that physically cannot be put out. It's providing its own source of oxygen. Freaky, right? Like frenzied flame levels of hot. I bet that could kill a ghost, or even a god, huh? Either way, that's the end of this tangent. Back to the program. I want to take a quick moment here, and first of all, thank you for sitting through so much science for this crumb of Elden Ring lore, and second of all, comment on something that you're using to watch this video. By refringence. Your screen uses electricity to modulate the intensity of the polarized light, which is similarly passed through a layer of specifically shaped liquid crystal grains whose angular dependence can freely alter the hue and saturation of the light, in addition to its luminosity, due to their birefringent capacity. To boil it down to an absurd degree, it's a process of alchemizing light where the initially incoherent, perhaps putrescent, natural incandescent light is produced and then filtered and molded like clay, bending the rays in circles until the only ones that make it past the filters are the exact color and intensity desired. I wonder where I've seen something like that. Bending light in a circle. I wonder if that has anything to do with the way the light reflects off the moon's surface, or the shape of the primeval current. And that reminds me, you're watching this on a screen, aren't you?
A spiraling screen, whose whorls you perceive to be all the colors of the rainbow. How marvelously mesmerizing.
Are you beginning to see why I brought up the stained glass windows yet? Oh, yes, it has all been leading to this. You are not even close to ready for this shit. Strap the fuck in because we're gonna talk about light diffusion physics now. Yeah! Hey, why aren't you all cheering? Guys? Okay, so, nacre, the thing that pearls and shells are made of, that has that weird iridescence to it, right? Like an oil slick, maybe the back of a disc that's been etched like a CD or a Blu-ray, or, you know, the scum that rises to the top of gold during the Miller process.
Das hat nicht so gut geklappt.
These come from the vast multitude of different angles, layers, and grooves in the curvature of the structure, leading to every possible reflection, from pure white light, kind of like it's distilling out one color at a time, removing hue from it one step at a time. That's pretty neat, huh? Check it out. Okay, so what could we consider the opposite of nacre then? Why, I would probably say ochre, which is generally a deep orange-yellow, contrasted with nacre's pale bluish white. You know, like cold or gold dissolved in aqua regia, or indeed, the color that stained glass turns when silver is used as a stain, as its absorption bands consume the complementary colors to yellow in the visible spectrum, leaving only yellow to pass through. And I'm going to take one quick moment here to discuss circular polarization apropos of nothing. Thank you for asking, and then we can move on and start applying these to Elden Ring. I swear, this is going somewhere. Please. So, imagine a spiral. Which direction is it spiraling? Does it seem to move up? Does it appear to move up or down while you're looking at it from any axis that is not its primary one? Does it perhaps move both ways at once? Spiraling in both directions symmetrically? In the same way that electrum is constructed of gold and silver, in the same way incoherent white light can be separated from red to blue and all in between, in the same way that light can be found spiraling in either direction, both up and down. Let us imagine this spiral represents not just life or death on its own, but their juxtaposition, possibly even a superposition. Life within death, and death within life, if you will. Perhaps a living medium giving up their mind to become a vessel of a dead god? Or perhaps being doomed to immortality, meaning that even upon death you cannot fully die. It isn't so hard to imagine, is it? Not in this game anyways, full of, actual ghost flame dragons who say that pretty outright. So that's the spiral, right? It goes up, goes down, brings light to you, brings light away. If the light radiating upon a being is life, then the light radiating off of them would be their death, no? And would you even see that light as it escapes your world? Or would that look invisible to you, like a hole in the light where it should be? Not to say that that's all the same as black light, but that the inversion of light would be a symbol that could be visually understood as one might understand infrared or black light or other forms of invisible EM radiation. And indeed, much like the black sun of alchemy was understood symbolically as the force that consumes the sun, much like an eclipse. So let's say you're from a society that worships the spiral, and also has cults based on fire, which your society finds heretical, but nevertheless inculcates. Because your society is based on people that are also trees, you see, and burning them is at least bad on paper. Also, paper would be bad. That seems pretty straightforward so far, right? When light rains down onto you, you can absorb it and then use it to make that sweet, sweet life-giving dew or tear or whatever they want to call amber or xylem to make it sound holier than tree blood. That's all that the holy chalice the flasks are based off was ever created to capture, after all, from the tree that would become the Shadu tree, as I discussed earlier, the one that was drained after the invasion. Remember that? With the moons in the worm video? Yeah, that's all connected. Let's go. So, speaking of black suns, moons, and skies, have you ever wondered why the sky is blue? I mentioned the atmosphere turning something blue earlier. That's pure science. Clustered particles diffuse longer wavelengths preferentially. And that sounds like a mouthful, but I'm going to explain that. It sifts out red and leaves only blue to pierce through, since blue is a smaller wavelength and it can fit between the smaller gaps. Now, note, this only occurs during the daytime because the world is being irradiated with a lot of visible light, while at night, the light is so thin that the moon and the stars are only mildly dyed blue, leading to the hues we see in them in the game as glintstone and as full moon sorceries. This is called the Rayleigh effect. This is the last science thing, I swear. Maybe. Anyways, that's why the things other than the sky turn blue when scattering light, such as snow, fog, water, and yes, even ashes and the surface of the moon itself. Without the sky's help. Red, you see, is this highly rarefied hue inside one of the spheres. Because it's so long, it can't make its way through the atmosphere. It can't be reflected off of a moon. There's only so many places it can come from, like the gold of the sun. If you lacked that, then your blood might not appear red. It might appear without hue whatsoever. Much like trying to develop lightning without a true sky or true lightning to base it upon. You would normally have to produce these in yourself from inside your body, in a sort of bubble-like microcosm, separated, solitary, cold, and lonely. Bearing the sins of the children inhabiting the earth, the moon doth devour its own light. Whose poem is that? I wonder. So to bring this back home, let's quickly go over the timeline of certain events. You'll see why in just a bit. Let's start with the Age of the Erdtree sequence. Marika hails from the golden age of the Hornsent, who worshipped the divine tutelaries, who channeled the Rankers, inside of one of the jails, likely Bonnie Jail, or perhaps the Lamenter's Jail, or somewhere nearby. She beholds a vision of gold / destined death, and it appears to her like a flame. She gains Maliketh, and this is the beginning of Erdtree faith inside the Land of Shadow. She then goes on to seduce the blasphemous serpent, leading to what we see in Bonnie Village, the snake shedding and also the statue with O Mother, Mesmer's crusade, and eventually the rebellion of the Hornsent. This including some of Mesmer's troops, particularly Salza, who was known to defend the ancient ruins of Rao with that Rain of Fire incantation. This points to the sacking of Enir Ilim being on their agenda, at least, especially given Mesmer's kindling and their role in accessing Enir Ilim. And the thorns sealing off Enir Ilim also indicate the Shadu tree's role in that, which means that it could have happened after as well. Resealing, if you will. Now, since this is the ancient ruin of Rao, this would be around the time she would have met Horalu, and then would have bore Godwyn, Morgoth, and Moog, and realized quickly that she was bearing Hornsent children as well as giant children who had features, presumably, if not then later, of Ningyo. Basically, both of them appearing to be not entirely human in a way that she found revolting, potentially, but would have been holy to the to those of the Crucible faith. It's her personal trauma that's driven her to find this revolting. And then we see her wage war against the giants. And I believe it's around this time that Spiral Tree faith was burgeoning, because there was this additional faith involving the spiral that eventually led to the god-killing greatsword, as that is clearly part of the Spiral Tree faith as well. And the thorn incantations represent a sort of ire at being abandoned, which is also quite interesting because upon abandonment, the golden incantations turned sorcery blue. How interesting. As if parted away so easily into chloride slime. No wonder such a substance would grow to resemble blood, and especially if it were the blood of dragons, no wonder it would be aflame. And at the end of their campaign, Horaloo defeated who I believe is Sarosh, the Stormlord, and subjugated him. This being a grand tradition of opponents basically becoming vassals of the person who defeated them if they survived the fight. This also led to Godfrey becoming tarnished, as the hue faded from his eyes, and he was exiled. This also leads to the abandonment of Ranni, Radahn, Rykard, Mesmer, the Shadu Tree, and, as mentioned, transforms the Thorn incantations into Thorn sorceries. I believe it's around this time she chose to reunite with Radagon, mostly because she became disillusioned with attempting to bear anything that wasn't from Erdtree lineage without literally mating with herself, a form of automixis which is common for plants. This leads to the Age of Abundance, where essentially the xylem is being sapped out of the Shadu Tree, and gold is being siphoned away, drained into the Erdtree and into the Erdtree's chalices, and being distributed as blessings while they still last. It's during this time she bears Miquella and Malenia, and then the Fingers assigned 3 more Empyreans, as they did when she was on her ascension. She was one of 2 Empyreans at least, the other being the Gloam-Eyed Queen, who we'll get back to. It is around this time that Ranni's plan finally reaches fruition, leading to the Night of the Black Knives, Godwyn's death, and triggering the Shattering, which I also believe is synchronistic with the actual battle between Plessis-Usax and Baal, judging by just the cosmology of Elden Ring and the fact that the site of their battle is outside of time, and those winds continue to wage war and be channeled through others into perpetuity and from ancient times. So let's compare that sequence with the Age of Stars sequence. During the golden age of the Erdtree, Ranni was born. She sees a vision of the Dark Moon and the Shadu Tree, an omen. And around this time she is marked as an Empyrean and gains Blythe. She plans and executes the Night of the Black Knives, leading to Godwyn's death and the Shattering, and plots to be able to reflect Maliketh's Black Blade. She also shares this with Rykard, who she's presumably cooperating with at this point, so she sees the merit in being fed to the blasphemous serpent. She appears to be taking a similar route in her own way. She's feeding herself to the cold night, in the same way that Marika, when she sacked Anir Illim, conjured and then seduced, using capabilities that are granted by the Fingers, which can perform illusions and befuddle and intoxicate the mind, which were passed on to Miquella as well, indicating that they are intrinsically connected with the tree. So after the Shattering, while everyone else is scrambling for a great rune and trying to become god, she discards the great rune of the Unborn through Radagon and Rennala, granting it to presumably Radagon's egg so that he can give it to Rennala. It's around this time that Radahn halts the stars, potentially to try and save her from her fate that she's already consigned herself to. and so Blythe remains sane. Radon, however, will die, which releases the stars, and a meteor then reveals Noxtella, allowing us to claim the Finger Slayer blade, which was formed from dead corpses. A cycle of life yet again. Upon possessing this Finger Slayer blade and committing this act of treason against the Fingers, the baleful shadows then take over, rendering Blythe insane. You have to kill him. E.G. is killed by Black Flame when you reveal this to him, and also several Black Knife assassins, all of whom, again, are Nox, and so exclusively female, again, mirroring Automixis and the way that plants reproduce, which also explains how they can be grafted together. And following this, Ranni triggers the Age of Stars, ushering in a new age of distance from the gods, so that they cannot be bribed or personally appealed to in any form, to avoid the corruptions that she saw from the other gods. We should also note that Blasphemous Claw deflects Destined Death. It appears to be a literal scale of the Blasphemous Serpent. And Maliketh fights quite a lot like a Curse Blade in the first place, which is itself a failed vessel for the Divine Beast, a failed Divine Tutelary, as mentioned. And Destined Death fires attacks that look kind of like Moonlit or Golden Illusory arcs as well. All of this appears to be connected, right? Like light or the presence of darkness, these are two of the same dynamics, simply moving in opposite directions. So, how much would you like to bet that another Empyrean from Marika's time, the other one at least, was the Gloam-Eyed Queen? That the one that she fought directly was her and no other? Perhaps the Grandall, the grandmother, who calls her a strumpet and wishes for the rancors to cleanse away her vile offspring? Hey, isn't it odd how the same jars that she would have been made from can be possessed by rancor spirits? I wonder if Marika's vision of Destined Death was all that different from the vision that granted the god-killing flame. The only way we differentiate them is their hue. One of them is red, the other colorless. I wonder if you might behold this outer deity that conjures and manages these rancors, like the Deathbirds, or maybe some sort of Night Lord, perhaps, just throwing things out there. And I wonder if you might perceive them as an outer god, and gain arcane from worshipping them. Arcane being something that would enhance the sap of a tree. It seems like they're in a tug of war, almost, over the same resource, the same life, the same amount of spirit. And one of them recycles them without preserving their memories, while the other does preserve their memories, etches it into the tree, if you will. Those memories being the thing that preserves its hue, possibly. Do you think maybe it's like Renala's moon and Ranni's dark moon, where one of them is just so bright that you can't see the color very well? Two people beholding the same vision, this one of flame, and yet imagining and envisioning different futures from them. Perhaps that would be a palatable answer, except... You know, isn't it odd that the very first Church of Marika isn't just in the mountaintops of the giants in the vicinity of a dragon, which is also on top of a lake that's been carved into the ground as if there was a great battle fought there? It's also right nearby the Godskin Swaddling Cloth's resting place. Do you not find that suspicious? Spirit collar snails, Godskin nobles, the fact that you can find Godskins in suspiciously official places. Even the divine tower that leads to Ranni's body, and the curse mark of death. Always associated with Fair Missoula and sanctuary stones, if not shedded snakeskins. This place where Marika, we know for a fact, abandoned Maliketh and sealed Destined Death outside of time, meaning that you can kill Maliketh there and still run into Geraint, who we know is Maliketh inside the world, before and after, truly outside of time. a place formerly adjacent to that crucible they sought on the aforementioned mountaintop, no less. Marika cursed the giants after learning about the undying nature of the giant's flame. Hang on. There is one more place you can find Godskin nobles other than the ones I've mentioned, right? You expect to find them near the blasphemous serpent or near any place associated with Farum Azula, but why Dominula? Why that old celebration that should only be remembered in the shaman village? Why would the Erd Tree tacitly tolerate that? The spiral moves down, and it brings light with it. When it moves back up, it takes the light back with it, leaving only a black void, an eternal night. Was there ever a meaningful difference between Destined Death and the Black Flame? From the beginning. Before what Marika did, I mean. Like, if so, did that god-killing Black Flame look blue? In the same way Destined Death looks red? Devoid of hue. As if it's been absorbed or cancelled out somehow, like trying to see blue on a blue backdrop. The moon, devouring its own light. And so it is that snow seeketh moonlight. To abandon the crucible, and with it the truth of the Erd Tree's abundance. To create the dark moon, by leaving the Shadu Tree in its shadow and sealing the lands away after invading them. To become free of sin, by washing oneself free of their hue that they have pigmented themselves with. Even a god needs segment themselves, lest they be consumed by their own rotting, formerly mortal flesh, from which they ascended. Marika cannot and could not have been born of serpent nor shaman. 'Tis treason. Marika is and always was the eternal god made flesh. Pay no attention to the jar jails. Look not upon Bonny Village, where her visage is paired with a great blasphemous shedding of the serpent, and above all, pay no attention to the lineage of Mesmer, who caused the Horn-Sent rebellion, for you may learn of her betrayal of Godfrey and Radagon alike, by burying a child with that blasphemous serpent that would later consume Rykard, named Egle, whose skin is shed in Bonny Village. Seduced, using the illusory powers aforementioned that Mikola would later master, passed down from the fingers themselves, in order to secure freedom. And then again, after that, to seduce yet another beast summoned from the Letless beyond, to knock free Destined Death once and for all, and allow the creation of Golden Order.
My loyal blade, and champion of the festival. Both your deeds will ever be praised in song. Now, the vow will be honored, and my lord brother's soul will return.
An intention of universal kindness, with the primal ruthlessness of the bereaved and the grieving. So it was that the formerly faith-based Golden Thorn incantations, once abandoned, parted away, became blue sorceries. Also, just don't drink too much colloidal silver. Seriously, just don't. I know it's got antimicrobial properties, but look, okay? Argyria is no joke. Seriously, do not search the phrase real-life Papa Smurf. Save yourself. There's still time!